Welcome to this brief chat on digital connectivity. The potential for digital technologies to expand people's access to essential services is huge. We estimate that progress on about 70% of the SDG targets could be accelerated by better leveraging digital technologies, but large gaps in digital connectivity remain, and 2.6 billion people have never ever accessed the internet. How are your UN teams supporting your host governments to close digital divides? And what are the challenges and solutions the UN team has brought to the table thus far?
Listen, I think just to put it quite bluntly, as the Secretary General said in his recent visit, India is the country that can make the SDGs a reality globally because of the scale. So actually, India has made a leadership position on digital public infrastructure. I think, for example, has the Guinness Book of World Record opening banking accounts, 18 million people in just 1 week. Now you have digital financial inclusion at a scale that's really hard to believe. Women, for example, with bank accounts have been increased from 25% to 80% in just about 5 or 6 years. Now, this has been provided an incredible partnership opportunity for the UN system. We've been working on resilience, working with the targeted public distribution system, which is basically providing resilient food supplies to 800 million people, which provided a really important shock absorber during the COVID pandemic. Also, the UN system worked with the government in the vaccination platform Wynhoven. And this is a combined effort of UNDP working together with UNICEF, with World Health Organization, which helped lead to over 2.2 billion vaccinations, provided the most in the world. So I think what we see is that India is staking a leadership on the SDGs through digital public infrastructure and has used the G20 presidency also as a way to really offer to the rest of the world, especially the Global South, but not only to partner, and the UN system is increasingly a partner in that. We just launched a new South-South cooperation partnership with India to help accelerate providing these assets to other countries.
Thank you so much. And how about in Serbia?
Well, Serbia embarked in the digitalization of the government services in 2017. So it was just a couple of years before COVID. As you can imagine, COVID basically gave a boost to this initiative, but thank God the government had already started, because it enabled basically the system to remain active for all the education and for the health. The UN was involved from the very beginning, but like in India, I'm hearing this, we had a coalition of agencies with UNDP, WHO, UNICEF that really supported the digitalization of the vaccination services. And Serbia, for the first 6 months of availability of vaccination, was the top EU country in terms of number of shots, of percentage of shots. So that was good, and that sort of structured the partnership between the UNCT in general and the Prime Minister's office, because the digitalization initiative is directly managed by the Prime Minister. I fast-tracked a little bit, but UN was involved mostly under capacity building, development of processes, but also to some extent in infrastructure. Now, what we have realized, of course, about a year and a half ago, is the services, the e-services that are provided are very institution-centric. So the new move for us now is to shift to a user-centric focus for this digitalization, and to, in particular, to focus on the most vulnerable. Serbia is a middle-income country, so there are a lot of things available for people, but you still have 20%, 30% of the population that has a hard time to reach e-services. And we are really developing this, and now hopefully with the SDG fund, to see what are the particular mechanisms that need to put in place. What are the type of methodologies that we should put in place within this e-governance and e-government, so that the most vulnerable, whether they are, elderlies, whether they are Roma people, whether they are people in rural communities, farmers who cannot access the services provided by Ministry of Agriculture. So what do we need to do in order to access these communities, which I think is the mandate of the UN in Serbia.
So a very brief follow-up question. How are you working with partners to boost accountability in issues like tackling hate speech and mis and disinformation with digital platforms?
Well, we're working with government, with the country team in many different directions. I think first of all, I would say we're countering disinformation, hate speech, these sorts of things. We've amplified the Verify, the global Verify campaign. We've translated all of those materials and shared those through many of the formal official languages in India. We've also been working during the COVID pandemic, for example, worked a lot on countering misinformation with government programs also. But I think equally important is that we're engaging with society on positive messaging. So, for example, we have UNESCO's working with a great program called Mentalities, trying to really bring positive messages of positive masculinity, basically that sort of thing. We're working with the Generation Unlimited, Yuva it's called in India, which is the largest in the world, on how to use youth as basically amplifiers of anti-discrimination, anti-stigma efforts and inclusion. So it's really it's a fantastic opportunity. We have ITU newly in India, promoting AI for good, so looking at how do we ensure that technologies are used for good and not for bad as well. So a lot of exciting opportunities.
And to round out our chat, how about in Serbia?
Well, our main stakeholders for the moment are the media, so we work a lot with the journalists. We work with the youth a lot, with the civil society, and with the independent bodies. So the ombudsman, the protector of equality and non-discrimination. So these are the bodies that we are working with. I think we are trying to create a space on which we can engage with the government on these very sensitive topics. And right now, Serbia has finally adopted a new media law, and I think this is one space that we can engage with, and with the judiciary system, with the Ministry for Communication and Media. So this is the next step for us.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for joining me for this brief chat on digital connectivity.